I started reading into it and I realized that there are as many definitions of US hegemony as there are rights. So the point is that nobody agrees. Everybody has their own convenient definition, and then they each have their own very convenient view, and there's an entire industry of people who are talking up US hegemony. The US is great, it's the military, it's the dollar, it's the US structural power, it's soft power, it's this, that, and the other. So then I began to read the history, like where does this idea come from? And I realized that this idea itself is an attempt to dress up an ambition that US policymakers began nursing as early as the early 20th century. So already before the First World War, around that time, the US could see that British power was waning, and they saw that now that they were emerging as a very powerful economy and so on, they felt that they wanted to try to replace Britain as the managing segment, as they thought of it, as of the world economy. And in particular, they said that they thought they would replace the sterling with the dollar, and London with New York as the world's financial center. So that was the goal right from the beginning. And in my book, Geopolitical Economy, I tell some really interesting stories about how they tried this after the First World War, but they failed. And then after the Second World War, they succeeded after a fashion. I put this in heavy quotation marks, the success, because one of my arguments is that there has been no such thing as US hegemony, only repeated attempts to try to establish it. So the reason they quote unquote succeeded after the Second World War is that they, at Bretton Woods, when the world gathered to try to devise some means of, devise the main foundations of international economic governance in particular, John Maynard Keynes went there with the plan of creating an artificial, creating a multilaterally agreed world currency, which would not be used by you and me to buy groceries or a car or what have you. It would be used only by central banks to settle imbalances among them, while our countries would continue using their national currencies. But essentially, the United States nixed this plan. They said, we're no way, leaving the world with no alternative but to use the dollar.